Sleigh bells?
Why it must be Podmas.
Welcome to The Memory Game, a podcast where I, Nathan Tuffin,
and I, Rob Beer, exchange voice notes as we carry out the important work of recording an emotional history of video games.
for the betterment of future generations. Hey, Christmas listeners!
Welcome to the Christmas bonus episode. Me and Nath both jumped on a call and we're going to talk through our Christmas memories, or at least we're going to try and do it just a single memory because otherwise we'll be here the whole damn Christmas day.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Memory Game Pod Christmas!
Memory Podmas Christmas.
I'm excited to hear your Christmas memory, buddy. Do you want to roll straight into it?
No, I was going to bounce it to you. And so
Okay.
Just for clarity, it's a question. It's not being chained into the others. So this is standalone. This is, I suppose, like a multiverse spin-off thing. I don't know what the parallel is there in Marvel.
Yeah,
because that's all connected. But
don't get your knickers in a twist, all the people that edit the Memory Game Pod wiki.
yeah, exactly. So this straightforward question. What's a game that what game did you love? No, what is it? Straightforward question. What's the best game? Here we go. Here's the question. What's the best game that you unwrapped at Christmas?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so my favorite game that I ever got for Christmas was in 2001, where I was gifted Grand Theft Auto 3, but also a PlayStation 2 at the same time. So the game and the means to play it. So we owned a PS1 in the late 90s, but when those Gen 2 consoles came out, me and my dad opted for a Dreamcast for some reason. And I can't remember why. And I know that we loved the Dreamcast and we had some great games on it. But I think we both felt like we'd made the wrong choice at points and we were kind of missing out on what PlayStation had to offer. So that year I started going around to my new exotic Zimbabwean friend's house, Justin, who had just moved to the UK. And I played GTA 3 with him on his PS2, with his dad and his brothers as well. And I was just so completely enamored with it. It was all I could talk about or think about during that period of time.
There was hype for years in the build-up to it as well. I remember seeing a screenshot of it about 18 months before it came out.
Yeah.
And it didn't need any explanation to why it was going to be worth your time.
I think when I played one
yeah.
and GTA London, all I remember thinking was, I wish this was 3D. The entire time, like this would be the most amazing game in the world if it was 3D, but technology will never allow that to happen.
Exactly, yeah. It's an impossible pipe dream. Imagine having the capacity and memory to be able to have an entire 3D environment that you can walk around.
Yeah,
a level maybe, but a whole city, that's insane.
And then, what it's become. Who could have predicted? Probably everyone could have predicted. But yeah, I was super obsessed with the idea of it anyway. And I remember telling my dad once at the dinner table after I'd been around Justin's house, like, I don't know if you remember, but you could, with a sniper's rifle and the M16, you could shoot people in the head in a first person view and their head would pop and there'd be a little gush of blood. I remember telling my dad, and my mum was just horrified. Yeah. And just like, what concerned that I was even going around someone's house to play this game.
What was your dad's reaction there? Was he all in and then it sort of caught your mum's eye and was like, yes, but also books.
Yeah.
Or something,
I think he was all, knowing what he was like, I picture there being a twinkle in his eye at the time, almost in a like, Christmas is coming. He loves this thing.
Yeah.
I don't care about what things he's already seen and been exposed to. I've probably shown him, I've already let him watch Terminator 2 and and he's already seen worse. So yeah, I think he probably would have, maybe said, oh yeah, I don't know about that next, but in his mind already, he was planning on buying it, I think. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And I think because we had a Dreamcast, I didn't think that we were going to get a PS2 anytime soon. The Dreamcast was quite new. So I think it was a real
You've had your pudding.
shock.
You don't get
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Who has two consoles from the same generation?
Yeah, exactly.
Only the rich and famous.
Yeah, rich. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, when I got it, do you remember there was a period of time where videos of kids opening presents and leaping about were quite a thing?
Yeah.
I think maybe on shows like You've Been Framed or something, but I remember doing that, really springing around the house with excitement, maybe a little bit performatively. But,
yes, yeah.
But I definitely was super elated. And then
where did it end up set up in your house as well? Was that like in the living room or
the house that you would have visited? We didn't live in then. We lived in a much smaller one in the town centre, but it just had a little kitchen a lounge and a dining room, but the PlayStation and the PC were in the dining room. That was like the go and play the games room. But what it meant was I was allowed to go and play it all morning, I think. And all of the hubbub of the house was in the lounge and kitchen, for Christmas Day. And I was just in there having the time of my life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then, being disappointed when I had to go. I also, we can potentially cut this bit, buddy, but I had a little aside about the Dreamcast. I ended up down a weird rabbit hole when I was just looking up what year would it have been and stuff like that.
Yeah, trying to pinpoint that. And
and I felt a bit guilty almost throwing shade at the Dreamcast because it was such a good console and I absolutely loved it.
And all the 6 games that came out on it were brilliant.
Well, yeah,
they? So.
there was, that's it. But we had Shenmue and Choo Choo Rocket, which you play online, which is really good.
Yeah.
And I really loved it anyway. But
there were so many elements to it. They're really ambitious in a way that modern Nintendo consoles, like later Nintendo consoles,
have
really
taken on.
blend into. But I guess it felt, I don't know if it was just a price point that made it difficult and not enough developers developing the games. But
it's a really weird one, and maybe one best saved for another podcast because it's got a lot of depth to it, I think.
Yeah.
But an interesting thing was like reading back up on it. It got like destroyed by the PlayStation 2 in all sorts of ways, and it was discontinued. They took it out of circulation after 3 years, which seems like no time at all. So in the equivalent space of time, PlayStation 2. So it was released a bit later, but in its first 3 or so years, PS2 sold between 70 and 100 million units, right, which was a lot for the time. How many units do you think the Dreamcast sold in its entire, run?
So instinctually, you're like, well, maybe like a tenth because it was really. But I feel like I'm doing that thing where I'm highballing it, so you can tell me that it was actually. So I'm saying 7 million, and then it's actually 7.
No, you're almost. Yeah, I was one of the 3 people that got one. No, you're right around the mark. It's 9 million in its entire run. So but it's just like, and also the PS2 went on to sell for like years more because they did a slimline version. So its ultimate sales were like nearly 200 million or something. Yeah. So but it just feels crazy. Only 9 million people in the world wanted to play a Dreamcast. That just feels, mad. That's it.
Again, not one for Christmas, but it'd be great to get your dad on to try and talk through how he was talking himself into a Dreamcast.
I can't remember that at all. I really can't. And he played as much as I did. He was really into it. I think we always got thrown off by the pads. Like we had a PlayStation ever since getting a PlayStation. It's always like, the PlayStation pad feels better in our hands, even though we had Xboxes and stuff like that. And I think I still feel that way now.
I'm the one person that prefers the Xbox pad
because you've got giant hands, isn't it?
Because I've got big fat hands, so it like leans to my advantage. And I think the Dreamcast was similar.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
Here's a Christmassy question.
Mm-hmm.
Christmassy quiz. Did it have dual thumbsticks?
Yeah.
It did.
It had dual thumbsticks, I believe, and it also, I think so. Do you know it also had a slot that you could put a pack in? But
well, this is my memories, but I don't remember. Was that the memory card bit? It was the
memory card bit. It had a little screen
on it.
Yeah, so you could have like a Tamagotchi in there.
Yeah, it feels very Nintendo, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
But the world was looking in a different direction. That you didn't want a little Tamagotchi, you wanted to pop people's heads off with a sniper rifle.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop some heads.
The world had turned, yeah, exactly.
And run people over. Let's do your one, buddy. What's your...
Well, I'm going to steer in a different direction. And it was of a similar time, I think, but I was obviously, clinging on to like an infantile life. Maybe I still am. Which is why we've made a podcast about computer games rather than,
doing anything more productive,
mortgage investment or whatever. So yeah, the game that I thought of that was like, what was I most buzzed to get at Christmas? What delivered? And it was my first post-Christmas divorce. So I think I was 11, possibly 12, and I used that to put my chips down and get a Game Boy Color with Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue.
Lovely.
Which was a really strange choice because Pokemon Red and Blue were the same game, but they sort of launched them, and they did this for ages. They launched 2 versions of the same game, and there's some Pokemon that are only in one version. And the idea being that you then meet up with people in the real world, and there was these cables that you could connect your Game Boys together with.
Did you
and you
know
could battle
that?
each other, but also you could sort of send them across.
Were you aware of that when you bought it? Like when you asked for both? Did you know that you were getting two basically the same games?
Maybe I
Or
didn't, but I just lent into it, and it was quite a good sort of saving grace because it only had one game save, right? So once you've completed the game, if you wanted to try something else different, if you wanted to start with the other Pokemon, you just had to wipe your entire
oof.
like game. And I was really attached to it was my sort of bonus answer in the characters that you've got most attached to was my
Yeah.
Blastoise from my original Pokemon game. And weirdly, so Pokemon Red had Charizard on the back, Pokemon Blue had Blastoise on the back, and I just opened up the packet, stuck it in the Game Boy, just put red in because red's my favorite color, and then picked the water Pokemon, which what an idiot! Like that irks
No,
me
you
my
were
whole time. Hold
you were
on.
bucking the trend.
Yeah, there's definitely something. Maybe there was something cool about doing it that way. It's like wearing odd socks or something, isn't it? It's not an
Yeah.
accident. I own this. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And so yeah, because I had both red and blue. Once I'd completed red, I completed blue 3 or 4 times, just like racing through it. I
Yeah.
think there was a bit in it where you had to go through a tunnel and you had to get one of the Pokemon moves that lets you do a thing called Flash, which like lights up the cave.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I could actually just do it without ever getting that. I could just do the cave in the darkness.
How?
Just because it's like, you get a feel for these things, don't you? How many steps to the right? It's like right, up, left, down, left, up. Although
That feels like
I don't think it saved you any time at all because it's not that difficult to get the move that you need. Just need to go and talk to someone.
that's a niche game skill though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think maybe that'll come useful. Yeah, it's like all these things. You never know what's going to be useful in life, so it's worth just getting everything done.
Learning how to navigate a video game cave in the dark.
Yeah, now that you say it like that, it does feel more niche than.
Do you remember which parent gave it to you and what you spent the day doing?
So I think they made a big thing about trying to do presents from both of them, even though I spent the day just with my mum. The present was from both my mum and dad. So
Right.
I think that was part of the keeping things sweet and ticking along.
That's a funny thing, isn't it? Because I feel like that's exactly what I would do as a parent. But at the same time, as a kid, you're probably just like, yeah, Game Boy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, paid no attention. Like, but it must have done, as you say, the performative thank you. And then just now leave me alone so that I can play this game.
Remember, this is from your dad too. Yeah. Blastoise, yeah.
Yeah. And it's obviously I've replayed that game, so it's the groove of that opening sequence is sort of really well trod. But I do think because of the sort of heightened excitement of it being Christmas based, it really it stuck with me. And it was really nice actually. There's a game for the Switch that I played with Layla that's called Pokemon Let's Go or something.
Yeah.
And you can get the Eevee version or the Pikachu version. And it's basically a 3D remastering of Red and Blue. It's like beat for beat, almost the same. Like the same map, you have to do the same puzzles. It's like a total redo. But I got to play it with Layla in a sort of polished format. And it had a thing where you could have a second player join in so that I could sort of help coach her through it without making a decision for her. She'd just be like mucking about doing tail whips with the Rattata that she held on to the whole time. Meanwhile, I was like actually winning the fights or whatever.
Was this the one where the second player just gives you a huge advantage you talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it doesn't level up as you do that. They don't get two. And so, yeah, one of you can just stay alive and like hand out potions and be a hype man, and the other one does all the fighting. It's it's interesting.
Oh, wonderful. All right, well, great video game memories.
And as a Christmas treat, we also tried to reach out to some of our previous contributors to see what memories they had to share. hopefully you've managed to get yourself a Christmas game, get back in that spirit of all that's good and right. And if you have, then let us know what you played. What was your Christmas game this year? But we'll play you out with some Christmas memories from our listeners.
Well, a very Merry Christmas to you both. Thank you very much for asking me to contribute to this amazing question. I've often described to you, Rob, before, that my memory is like a little man in an office who is frantically searching through filing cabinets, trying to find lost memories, and there's paper flying everywhere and he's panicking, kind of like Gil from The Simpsons. But yeah, this memory was quite readily available at the front of the cabinet, so no need to worry. Yeah, it's an amazing question, because immediately it takes me back to getting up on Christmas morning, knowing that game is there, going down, opening your presents, getting it out and being like, yes, I cannot wait to play this. And then the reality of having to wait until everyone's opened their presents, you've had breakfast, and then you're finally allowed to sneak off for an hour or two to play the game, because you're expected to have family time. But and then feverishly sitting at Christmas dinner again, waiting for the next moment you can go back upstairs to play the game. So for me, this was The Getaway, which I just looked up, came out in 2002. So I still would have been in school. And yeah, what a game. Based in London, sort of gangster style shooter. It just takes you back to that Christmas day, and then days after that, just playing it constantly and probably reaching the end before the new year. I remember spending a lot of time just exploring London, because it was sort of an open world based in London, almost like a British GTA. I said the magic word, or magic acronym. So that's my Christmas memory game. I really look forward to hearing yours. Loving the pod, so keep up the good work. Thanks, guys.
Hello, pal. Thanks for the message. Just coming back on your question about the best video game I ever got for Christmas. And it was a close one between two. It was either Shogun Total War or Tiberian Sun. And I had to go with Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun. I think that's probably the one I anticipated the most and had the biggest build up to finally receiving it. So my cousins had the first Red Alert, which we played heaps, but they used to live hours from us back when we lived in Zimbabwe. So I only played like once or twice a year. And I just remember dreaming about it and just being desperate to play it so much. So when I heard Tiberian Sun was coming out, that's all I could ask for. But because we're in Zimbabwe, we never used to get anything on release date. But luckily we were going down to visit family pre-Christmas, sometime in like early December, I think, in like 1999. I can't fully remember. But I remember us being desperate to go to this one shop that I looked at, like a big Macro or something it was called, and they actually had it in stock. So I got my parents to buy it. I hassled them, and they said I'd have to wait till Christmas to have it. So I remember having like a week-long holiday and being the longest holiday of my life, where I could just see this game in the box. I had it with the CD, and back in those days, it used to come in like this huge box with like a full manual and all the lore and all the factions and everything else. By the time we got back to Zimbabwe, I'd read that book about 50 times and was like so desperate to play all the factions. I knew who I wanted to play. I wanted to play Nod, obviously, play with the evil guys, and just desperate to play it. And I remember being a hassle my parents for so much on that holiday and for so much of the drive home that they actually let me have it early, because I was one of the older kids. They were like, oh, go on, just have it now, but this is your Christmas present. I remember just playing it endlessly, including on Christmas Day, just forever. I just remember being the best game that I ever got for Christmas was definitely Tiberian Sun. Just the build-up was just amazing. Well, I think that's about it, buddy. Nothing too much else to add. Can't wait to hear what your favourite game is that you got for Christmas, you and Rob. Cheers, buddy.
Hey there, Rob and Nath. The best game that I ever got for Christmas is also probably the only one I can actually remember. Donkey Kong 64 for the Nintendo 64, which for me is possibly the best Christmas present because it had the one thing that makes a good Christmas present, which is that it was really exciting on the day. That's what you need on Christmas Day. And Donkey Kong 64 was for quite a few reasons. It looked great, which was always good. It also had multiple characters, which was mildly mind-boggling. I think I'd probably played Jet Force Gemini, which had the same, but to be playing as not just Donkey Kong, but also his various family members felt pretty huge at the time. It also started with an excellent rap that's recently, from what I understand, been revitalized for the Mario movie. But possibly the most exciting thing about it was the fact that it came with an expansion pack. And it came out towards the end of the N64's life, from what I remember. So I'd been staring at that slot with the little thing that pops out at it, in it for years at this point, not really sure what it was, knowing that if I turned it on without anything in there, my N64 didn't work. But now finally, I had a special red cartridge that when I pushed that into the expansion slot, I was able to play, get games that with more power. If I'm honest, could I have told you the difference between Donkey Kong 64's graphics and any other games? Probably not. But it was amazing to me that just by inserting this extra little module that I could squeeze a bit more power out of my beloved N64. Now that I look back on it, that probably was a bit of a lightning bolt moment for me, because since then I've overclocked pretty much every computer I've had. I've upgraded and tinkered with all sorts of different consoles, including Nintendo ones. My Game Boy SP, Game Boy Advance SP, has an LCD screen and all sorts. So probably it would have meant a much simpler life for me if I never received an expansion pack. But clearly it had an effect. Anyway, good to hear from you as always, and have a happy Christmas, you filthy animals.
Memory complete. Uploading memory.
Thanks for listening to this special Christmas edition of the Memory Game Podcast, and thank you, listeners, for all of your support over the last few months as we've launched the podcast, from me and from Rob. If you would like to share any gaming memories with us, Christmas-based or otherwise, you can contact us at memorygamepod@gmail.com or on Instagram @memorygamepod. Ho, ho, ho!